Hey everyone, guess what we're gonna do today? We're going to have a walkthrough on this 2008 GMC Sierra on how to change the windshield wiper mechanism, the motor, the transmission. This is actually a brand new unit I just put in about a week ago, and oh look, something has come apart already. Factory one lasts nearly 300,000 K. After one lasts about 1 week. Awesome. So let's begin. Basically, you've got the covers at the corners. These just pull straight up, and then you more or less, with a little bit of finagling, just pull them back. These are the clips that you're battling. These three sit like that. You have the one on the other side that of course has the antenna going through it. You can actually pull the antenna off to do this, but it's kind of overkill. I usually just pull this straight up, take the cover, turn it. It can just sit there, or you can pull it up over the antenna if you like. Unfortunately, this does turn out to be a two-handed job, so I really can't show you this being done. But because this one actually is a little different shape than the other side, I also usually find it's easier if you lower the hood down before you can try to get that out. So if you pull the hood down to about there, it's a lot easier to get this side off. Now it is optional, but you can take this ground strap off. It's just held on at the top by a 10mm nut. It just makes getting the main cowling cover off a little bit easier. So there it is removed. Always a good idea. Put the nut back where you found it, so then you don't lose it. Next thing we're going to do is take off the black plastic cap that would normally cover right here. You can just usually grab them and give them a little flick, or you get a small screwdriver under them to pull them off. I kind of have to replace this side. That's why there isn't one on it right now. Yeah, don't drop them. They like to go down there, and you'll never ever see them again unless you take the fender off. So you do that, and you just grab the squirter hose right here, right at the bottom, give it a pinch and a wiggle, and she just pulls right off. And then all we have to do is take off that nut. They're not super tight, so you can just get in there with a 3/8 drive. It's a 15mm nut. And then you can just take the nut off and set it off to one side. Sorry, the hinge keeps getting in the way there. There, we're just gonna lower the hood again so it's a little easier to get to. So after you get the nut off, you can just fold up the arm. That takes the tension off of it. And if you just give them a little wiggle, they'll just lift right off the spline like that. Easy peasy. Remember that they are side dependent, so don't go and get them mixed up left to right. If you do manage to get them mixed up, the left side, or driver's side in North America, has more of an angle to it than the other side. So if you do manage to get them mixed up, that is one way to tell them apart. Center one's essentially the same as the other, except it's easier actually to get to it, to take it off from under the hood. That's what I found anyway. But same idea, you flip up the cover and you pinch the hose, take off the nut, and now it's kind of up to you if you want to do it from in here or if you want to do it from outside with the hood closed, but it is almost easier to take it off with the hood down. So there we go, same deal. You just fold it up, give it a wiggle, and off she pops. And there you can see the difference between the driver's side one and the passenger side one. Not quite as much of an angle right there. The one to come off is these little clip guys right here. There's one on each side. They sometimes put up a fight, but if you give them a little pull at the bottom and then a little pull at the top, they'll usually come off. Or you can get a screwdriver underneath them if you don't want to mush up your hands, which is probably a good idea, so let's do that. And these are the clips you're fighting. You can see they've got 4 little serrated jaws there. And 2 of them bite into the plastic, 2 of them bite into the metal, but yeah, they do like to stay on there, so save yourself some grief. Just gently hook them with a screwdriver and wiggle them out. After you get those clips out, the next one are going to be 4 little 7mm headed screws, little self-tappers. You can have one there. There's one right there. And you got one right there. And the other guy is hiding down there. I personally like to do this with my Milwaukee M12 ratchet, 7 mil, and a wobble extension. Between the two of them, you can usually do it. If memory serves, you get 3 of them out without the extension, and then the one that's at the far back left corner that was way down, he actually needs the extension. Okay, so we got all those 4 screws out. Here's what they look like. They've got a little plastic collar on the end of them underneath the washer head, and that basically stops you from, as you're screwing it down, when the plastic comes up to the underside of it, you're not quite so likely to actually crush this knot out of your plastic cowling. So the next operation is you essentially just go in and lift out the cowling. This is a little trickier holding the phone with one hand. I gotta get a tripod set up for my phone or start shooting with a camera. Anyway, we're gonna do this with 2 hands like you should, but what you'll also find is that the feeder for the squirters is right here. He has to come off as well. It's kind of up to you where you take it off. There's a whole bunch of disconnects all along the way, but the one that's right here that you can't quite see is fairly easy to get to, and that's usually where I take it off. There, now that I've actually got it lifted out of the way, you can see here's the point right here where it transitions from a rubber hose over to a plastic. You can just disconnect it right there. Just try not to let that drop down. It won't go too far, but you can lose it down there. You just gotta fish it back out. Side note, if you were ever planning on getting a new windshield anyhow, do your glass guys a favor. Get to this point in your install, stop, go in and get your windshield changed, and then finish the job off. They will love you for it because they don't need to take your truck apart. And let's face it, then you don't have to worry about them screwing everything up for you. So from here, the entire wiper motor assembly is simply held in by 3 fairly long bolts with a 10 mil head on them. So you're just gonna wanna take that one out, and that one right there, and that one right there. The only other slightly tricky thing is how these electrical connectors come off, because they're all different and everyone seems to like to do it their own way. But there's no need to smash them. This one is particularly tight, but basically how these connectors come off is on the back side. Of course, you know, so you can't see it or anything. There is actually a little push lever. It's right at the very, very end. So the idea is you squeeze, I'll exaggerate this, but you squeeze right here, and then basically just give it a wiggle and it will come off. Again, this is one of these things where holding it with a phone and trying to do this isn't the easiest thing to do. Another option is to use a pair of these. These are wicked. These are actually meant for taking off hoses and things, hence the funny shape. But you see the tip doesn't actually quite come together. So one thing these actually work really well for is just reaching around things, and you can grab the clip with these, give them a squeeze, and it just comes right off like that. Here, now I'll flip that clip over so you can see the underside of it, so you know what you're up against. So this is the side you see. This is the part you don't see. This lever right here is what you're actually trying to squeeze down. And that's what releases the little tang and allows you to pull it off. So after that connector comes off, nothing to it. You just lift the entire assembly out. Sometimes takes a bit of wiggling, but other than that, it's just a matter of reversing the whole process. You shove it back in the hole. I highly, highly recommend you put some never sees on the bolts, because they are of course exposed to the weather and they do want to rust. Other than that, you just put the cowling back on, put all your clips back on, put your screws back in. Do not over tighten the screws. All they're going into is that little plastic. So you want to put like about, 6 inch-pounds. We're talking just barely finger tight, or you will simply strip all the screws out and then you got nothing holding anything in place. Stick all the rest of it back together and Bob's your uncle, away you go. There is one thing, if for some reason you've taken yours apart and you can't figure out the angle to put everything back on, you can basically see here how that one sits, let's call it at about a 45 degree to the left, maybe 10 o'clock, depending on how you want to say it. And this one is the same. It's at the same angle. So this one here is actually a Dorman replacement. We're doing this kind of backwards. I took my other one out and now this one has gone back in. Timing, video, thinking about filming stuff, things like that. But essentially that is how it goes in. You'll see that this Dorman one here is all made out of steel, whereas the factory one is made out of cast aluminum, and the bushings do have a tendency of croaking on those. So if you ever find that you grab your wiper arm and you can flop it around all over the place, yeah, it's probably the bushings are gone. And I am talking about the bushings that are inside of this shaft right here. And there's, I don't know, I guess you could, if you were really motivated, you could take it apart and you could machine out some brass bushings, or you just go buy another one and shove it in. It really depends how motivated you're feeling that day, I guess. This thing was about 180 bucks in Canadian pesos, something like that. Got it off Amazon. Oh, word to the wise, check your RPO sheet. These things were made in 2 or possibly 3 different factories, and there are different part numbers for the different versions of it. So what you really need to do is look at how the motor attaches, what angle it goes on, things like that. And compare it to the picture of what you're actually going to get and go from there. All right, I think this has dragged out long enough. I'm sure you don't want to hear from me anymore. So we will sign off, and until next time, happy motoring. Thanks for watching.